and his family asked for the maximum, we're still holding out for the maximum.
Yeah, that's right.
We have to remember, real justice in America will be black men and black women and people of color will not have to fear being killed by the police just because the color of their skin.
Yes.
That would be real justice.
Yes.
So we thank most of all the millions of Americans who raised their voice. You all raised your voices, and because you raised your voices, that is why we got the guilty conviction, and that is why we got the longest sentence in the state of Minnesota history. So on behalf of the Floyd family, we want to say thank you to millions of Americans who all said, until we get justice for George Floyd, until we get accountability for George Floyd, none of us can breathe. We can breathe just a little easier today, and we thank you for that.
We got your back.
We got your back.
Thank you all, and I will say this. We got accountability on the civil side, thanks to the leadership of the city leaders in Minnesota. We now have gotten some accountability in the criminal level, but we need accountability on the policy level. So we say to the United States Senate, pass the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act immediately. 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 At this time, I give you one of the finest attorneys in the United States of America. I have had the pleasure of being with a team of lawyers, Reverend Al, who are second to none. And each of them work tirelessly day and night from every corner of America, working on behalf of George Floyd's family. And there is no way we could get to this point where we're at on this journey to justice without all our brothers and sisters, Bhavani Ravindran, Madeline Simmons, Michelle Godot, all of those, Scott Peters, all of them who are working, Scott Madison. They allowed us to come out front to be with the family today, but they are not forgotten. And I know my brother in the bar who just did wonderful things in Louisiana with Alton Sterling, Chris Stewart, appreciates each and every one of the lawyers on our team. At this time, you're going to hear from Attorney Chris Stewart and Attorney Justin Miller.
First, let me start by saying Roxy and Gianna couldn't be here, but right now, Gianna is actually watching. She's watching live. So let me tell you, Gianna, you've done two things in this case. You started by saying, my daddy changed the world.
Yes.
Yeah. I want you to know you changed the world.
That's hard.
Because today, that statement that you gave was not just powerful, but it was prophetic. You told us that his spirit is still here.
That's right.
And people that are doubting, people that are looking at these monuments coming up and the statues coming up of George Floyd and not understanding, you aren't understanding that his spirit is changing things. It doesn't matter who the man was. It matters who he is now.
Yes.
There are conversations happening between black and white that never would have happened before about police. There are conversations happening between senators that we are pushing and urging to stand up for what you believe in. If you believe in law and order and change, then you will pass this bill because it protects everyone. Nelson Mandela once said, if you change what you believe depending on who you're talking to, you are not fit to lead. So we are looking for leadership. We are looking for the spirit of George Floyd, which is in every single person now. We are getting off the sidelines and realizing that if you critique policing, it doesn't mean you hate every cop. It means you want the bad cops gone.
That's it. Yes.
And we only will change things by leaving the sidelines and coming together in the middle, no matter what color you are. And that is the spirit of George Floyd. And yes, Gianna has changed the world. Yes, it's been an honor and a privilege standing up for this family. It's just been an honor.
First and foremost, I would like to say to the family, my condolences, my prayers from my family and from everyone in Atlanta, from Scott Masterson, Madeline Simmons, Lewis Brisbois Law Firm, who put in a lot of work to help get us to the point we are today. Thank you to the family. I know that Mr. Chauvin's mother didn't have any words for the family, but we do, and I know you guys do. So to the family, I say my condolences, and I'm sorry. And we love you. And we love you. Because this is what it's about, first and foremost, love. The second thing I'll say is this. Until things like this are not national news, we haven't made it. We're still in the same place that we were 20 years ago and 30 years ago. We are all here talking about something that everybody sitting right here knew what should have happened.
That's right, yes.
We knew from day one he murdered George Floyd.
Yes.
We all saw it. But we had to go through this for a year to get to this point where this family can have some modicum, some amount of closure. A year. So I'll say this, until black and brown people in this country can get closure, can depend on the justice system, can know that when someone murders somebody in broad daylight, that they're going to be held accountable, we got a lot of work to do. And I will say to all you people, all you activists, all you people who are fighting from day one, keep working, keep pushing, keep fighting. Keep fighting. Because we have a lot of work to do in Atlanta, Georgia, and in Brookline, Minnesota, Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, I'm sorry, and in New York City, and in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and in North Carolina, and in Los Angeles, California, Chicago, in Texas and Chicago. We have work to do. So keep pushing. This is a victory, and we're going to celebrate it as a victory. But it's one small step, and we have a lot more to go. So thank you guys for being with us through all of this. Thank you guys for loving this family, and pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. ASAP.
And now, before we get to the family, some great lawyers from Chicago, Illinois, one of the best civil rights lawyers in America, and a great lawyer who hails right here in Minnesota. I mean, without him giving us the lay of the land, there's no way we would have been able to achieve what we have accomplished. Attorney Antonio Romanucci and Attorney Jeff Storms.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tony Romanucci. What we saw today was the graph intersected. The perfect apex now between civil justice and criminal justice. What we now have today, we have proof that Black lives matter, that they are valuable, and that when you violate policies, you're going to pay. You're going to pay a lot of money, and when you violate the law, you're going to get prosecuted, and you're going to go to jail, and you're going to go to jail for a long time. And those two lines cross today, and George Floyd now equals justice on both civil and criminal. But the job isn't over. It's not over until we go state to state. Reverend Al, Ben, you all said it so eloquently. We must have the George Floyd Police Reforming Bill passed. If that doesn't get passed, our justice could fall. The graph could fall. We need justice all over America. We want justice for George Floyd, the Floyd family. We continue to love you. We always will. We'll always be a part of your lives. But there are so many other families that are here today that are also suffering and require that same justice, civil and criminal. That's what matters most. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Not a lot to say that hasn't been said, but as the local Minnesota lawyer, I just want us to remember that we need all of you. We need the media, we need the activists, because the second we turn around and leave, we have to go back and ask ourselves, how do we get more justice for George Floyd? How do we get justice for Dante Wright? How do we get justice for Winston Smith? How do we get justice for the many families here who are regularly fought for, on behalf by people like Tashira Garraway and her group,
Yeah.
Nakima Levy Armstrong and her group, and without all of you, we don't have the energy for that fight right here. We need you all to keep turning out, and we appreciate it because it's allowed the Floyd family to get the most historic justice we've ever seen, but it's not enough.
Amen.
Thank you.
Not enough.
Don't forget Jalal Eid.
Jalal Eid.
Jalal Eid. Marcus
And,
Logan.
and as we get ready to bring up the Floyd family, I would be remiss if Brandon, as we heard the sentence leaned in and whispered in my ear, I got a text from Breonna Taylor's mother congratulating us on getting some justice, the justice that she never got. And I have to tell you, Reverend Al, as Derek Chauvin's mother was standing up there making her comments, I thought of Tamika Palmer, Breonna Taylor's mother.
Yes.
And so it's not enough until we get justice for all of our people who have been killed unjustly. I think Breonna Taylor's with us.
Yeah.
Right now, we're going to have you hear from some of the Floyd family members. You've come to know him. He has been speaking at the U.S. Congress, to the United Nations and everywhere, saying that we demand justice for my big brother George Floyd. He sounds like a politician, Reverend Al. Mr. Philonis Floyd.
It's on. You got my vote for it.
I got a lot of emotions going through my head right now, but I just find it profound that I felt that I begged for justice for my brother, some type of accountability. The treatment that I thought that everybody should receive. It's just life, you know. You can't get that back. We all live together in this world, and we all want to be able to work together in this world. You have good police officers and you have bad ones. The fact that you shouldn't have to sort them out. The community that I grew up in, it was a lot of African American people. But the fact that Minnesota has a greater amount of Caucasian people, I still think that everybody should be the same. Everybody should be neutral. Everybody should want to make a difference and make sure that people, when they come to Minnesota, they don't think about George Floyd. They should be able to think about how great Minnesota is. Not thinking about Philando Castile, you know. His mother is still fighting.
Yes.
Thinking about Dante Wright.
Yes.
Many families I had to console. You think about Anthony McClain. He was killed. All of these people were shot in the back, most of them. The fact that I'm here and I'm still standing, and over a year later, I'm still speaking and I'm speaking out. Times are hard. I have a family, we wake up every day and we don't see my brother. Empty seats all around the house he would have been in. The fact that Gianna would grow up knowing that her father had made a difference in the world, but the fact that she cannot have a sweet 16, she cannot have him walk her down the aisle, she would not be able to have prom with the daddy dance. This is not something realistic. This is something, it's like a dream, but we all need to stand up for what is right.
All right.
All these activists and all these advocates, I thank you all. Definitely I thank you all. Because if you all didn't speak out, we wouldn't have had a lot of help. But the fact that the world, you got to think about Japan. You have to think about Germany. You have to thank United Nations. You have to thank Italy. I have so many different people I spoke to, Africa, all around the world, and they all think the same way. Your skin color should not define who you are.
Amen.
It should never be a weapon. And the fact that we're here standing today, still breathing, We're still fighting. Reverend Al always said, keep fighting. And that's something I can't stop. I want to tell Miss Carr, I love you. Yeah. I know it's hard. That's Eric Garner's mom. I want to tell Breonna Taylor mom, I love you. Pamela Turner, I know it's hard. I want to tell Pamela Turner, that's Baytown, Texas. Yeah. This is not okay. Her daughter is walking around, and I know she's in tears every day thinking about her mother. Her mother was killed in point blank range, shot multiple times. So many different people all around the world who didn't even have this type of technology. I just want to reiterate, not just Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. Yes, we need to stand up and fight. Can't get comfortable, because when you get comfortable, people forget about you.
Yeah. Amen.
So the legend will still live on. George is not here, but his spirit lives here. Breonna Taylor is not here, but the spirit still lives here. Eric Garner is not here, spirit still right here. But the fact that we're here fighting, I want all you all to stand up and fight. Thank you all so much.
And next we're going to have another brother of George who came all the way from New York, Brooklyn, New York. And as we introduce him, it's not lost on us as Attorney Stewart and Attorney Romanucci and I talk. It's always a journey to justice. Tony told me Laquan McDonough, who was found guilty, his killer, the police officer that killed him, shot him 14 times in the back on video. 16 times in the back on video. And he was convicted of second-degree murder. And he was only sentenced to 6 years. Botham Jones, who in Dallas, Texas, was killed in his own apartment. The white policewoman Amber Geiger was found guilty of first-degree murder, Reverend Al. And she was only sentenced to 10 years. And Justin Miller, where was it, Walter Scott in South Carolina, same conviction, shot in the back, on video, convicted 20 years. So each step, each case, we keep making progress. We came too far to stop now. We have to keep going forward. And so that's why all the energy we have in this courtroom, we have to take to Capitol Hill, and we have to join Senator Cory Booker. We have to join Congresswoman Karen Bass, Senator Tim Scott. We got to say, you all, we need meaningful police reform so we don't have to put up with these injustices. Seem like, Reverend Al, every other week there's a new hashtag. We can stop this, America. We're at the turning point. Terrence Floyd, Brooklyn, New York.
Let me hear y'all say change. Change. Let me hear y'all say change. Change. That's right. Just like I heard y'all say change all together, that's how we're going to keep the change going together. Fight. Keep fighting. The way we got here is because of our fight and your fight together. Y'all hit the streets. We thankful for y'all. And we just, I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. Because I'm going to tell you a quick story. I had a dream the other night. I was in a field. I was in a field in the South with my family. And I looked back and I saw a man. I saw a man coming up, walking. And I'm trying to figure out who is that? Who is that? I look, he gets closer. And all of a sudden I see the hat cocked to the side like this. Anybody that know me know who that is. That's my father. So he got close to me and he gave me a smile and he gave me a hug. I woke up, that dream was so real, I woke up hugging myself. So I knew, I was a little leery about the sentencing, but because of that, I knew that my father was saying, you good, he's good, keep doing what you're doing, for me, for your brother, for your name, because we Floyd strong, and we gonna stay strong. Yeah, it's on. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you, Terrence. Next, we will hear from the nephew of George Floyd, who's like a brother, like a son in many regards to him, Brandon Williams.
It's funny that we got justice, but not enough justice. You know, I remember standing here the first day of trial in this very same spot, and we were very optimistic and unsure of what was going to happen. After seeing that video, we should have been 100% sure that we would be at a guilty conviction with a maximum sentence.
That's right.
When you think about George being murdered in cold blood with a knee on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, execution style in broad daylight, 22 and a half years is not enough.
Right. Go ahead.
We were served a life sentence. We can't get George back. Gianna can't hug George again. He'll be able to hug his family possibly and see his family again. We can't get George back. So in retrospect, I feel that he should have received a life sentence as well.
That's right.
What kind of message are you sending to our country? What kind of message are you sending to the younger kids like Gianna? That you can kill a man in cold blood and get a slap on the wrist? That's like a slap in the face to all of us standing up here. And everybody around the world who feel what we feel and saw that video. So I won't celebrate this. I won't celebrate it at all. But I will celebrate a guilty conviction on a police officer that killed a black man, because far too many times we see them kill us and get right away with it. I will celebrate this as a victory for Miss Tamika Palmer, who I'm very, very close with. I hope that Attorney Daniel Cameron out in Kentucky can follow Keith Ellison's lead and charge the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. So there are some positive things to take from this. But this 22 and a half years just isn't one for me. Thank you.
All right, Brandon. Thank you. From the heart, Brandon. And we have his brother, his baby brother, Rodney Floyd from Houston, Texas, 3rd Ward.
Hey, how y'all doing? You know, I would like to thank the protesters first, the local protesters. And in this city, I would like to thank all the protesters that came out across the country to this city and standing up in their cities as well, demanding change. We all have one thing in common: we want change for my brother's case. This right here is this 22-year sentence they gave this man. It's a slap on the wrist. We serving a life sentence and not having him in our life. And that hurts me to death. And looking at his daughter, beautiful daughter Gianna, in her video, saying the very first video, my dad changed the world. He did change the world. But at the end result, he gets a slap on the wrist. My nephew just said, 22 years from killing her dad. That she can't take her to school. He can't eat lunch with her. He can't conversate with her. I know with my daughter, I love my daughter. Hugs her, we talk, this is my little best friend. And I hate to see that he cannot have that, she can't have that connection with her father. Those great conversations, those wonderful phone calls, lighting up her face, you know. And around the world, black, white, brown, we all need to come together, take our bus to the Senate, stand out there and demand this George Floyd Act be passed, and also, as well as the act being passed. We need to stand up, put pressure on this Senate. You know, and I was thinking last night, guys, honestly, we heard Obama say this plenty of times, get out and vote. We hear so many folks say get out and vote. Everybody got out and voted, marched in these streets, and we got change. We got our first black president. A lot of people came together like they did now, my brother's death, and we got this. But guess what, people? We need to take that same energy, bring that back to the Senate, and demand them pass that bill. Because as we've seen Trump numerous times stand up, fussing on camera, numerous times, countless times, because he did not have the power that we thought he had to get something done. He had to call on the Senate. If we need to get out there, understand that message, go to the Senate, put pressure on the Senate, and get these bills and laws passed for all of us. To stand over with this American flag as one. And we, as black people, need to know this American flag represents us, because we feel it don't.
Thank you, Rodney. And as we bring his cousin, Sharita, yeah, please understand, this is only one step in getting accountability in the criminal level. The federal charges are still pending. So I do believe that when Pelonis and Terrence and Rodney say the maximum, it is still attainable to get maximum accountability for George Floyd.
Say that.
Maximum accountability for George Floyd. 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 Now you will hear from his cousin Sharita Tate.
Hello, everybody. I won't spend a whole lot of time sort of reiterating what my family has already said. I think they spoke very eloquently about how we dealt with this last month and our thought processes as it relates to the amount of time that Derek Chauvin was given. Truth be told, I don't think any sentence would be enough, because what truly would be justice would be for us to be able to have George back. But with that being said, I'd just like to take this time to thank the countless number of people that have been supportive of us since the very beginning. I remember when we first came here and we were talking about the sentence and the trial and what potentially the outcome would be. And as we sat through the trial and watched the murder over and over again and came back with the 3 convictions, then we all waited and waited for this day. I will have to say that we didn't get what we wanted. We definitely wanted to see the maximum penalty, but however, as they've already stated, we do have the federal ahead of us, and we are hoping that we can get some real accountability with him getting a life sentence. And lastly, I just want to speak on the Policing Act. We've had it partially for the Senate, and I would just say, echo what everyone else has said. We need this passed immediately. We need to really have some true accountability across the board. Thank you.
And finally, before we take a few of your questions, we have his cousin Tara Brown from Houston, Texas.
I just want to say, my family has spoken a lot about everything that we've gone through since we started this journey. And I will tell you, it definitely has been a journey for us. And as a family, we decided that we were committed to 2 things. For sure, we wanted to make sure that we got some measure of justice for George and for the countless other families who have lost loved ones in the way that we did. And the other thing is that we were committed to making sure that we force the change that we want to see and create this legacy that will live on forever. Just want to say thank you to everybody who has supported us throughout this journey, especially the protesters and the activists who have been nonstop and relentless, and they've helped us get to this point. And the other thing is, we want to say that this bill needs to get passed, and I want to make sure that we don't stop just with this bill, but it's important that you hold your state elected officials accountable to that as well. We are also looking at the local level where they're making change. Even in our city where we're from in Houston, there has been some changes already. Our mayor, Sylvester Turner, has banned chokehold, and we have qualified immunity is on the table. So we are keeping active, and we want to make sure that you stay in the fight. Please keep fighting. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And finally, our national leader, Reverend Al Sharpton.
We're going to open up the questions for the family and all of us. Let me say this so you're clear. If there is conviction in the federal trial, and he is convicted and the other 3, that federal time can run after the 22 and a half years.
Amen.
Does not have to run concurrent, which is why we're saying that we still want full justice.
Right.
Secondly, when we talk about the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, we know the difference, Senate, between 2 slices of bread and a sandwich. A sandwich has meat between the 2 slices of bread. Don't come down with a compromise that is 2 slices of bread with no meat in the middle. Don't put George Floyd's name, a strong man, on a weak bill. Make sure that you talk to those in the family and those of us involved in the struggle before you make any compromise. The difference between a compromise and a sellout is in the eye of the appraiser.
Wow.
And we will be part of the appraiser. Question.
Yes, here's a question for the family. I have a question with regard to the family. And I'd like to pose a question to one of the family members, whomever would like to answer it.
What's the question?
During this news conference in last June, Attorney General Ellison issued a clarion call to the arts and entertainment community to take the mantle and seek justice. Any one of the family members can answer why that might be important to them or why it may not.
Why to get artists and entertainers involved. Philonis will attempt to answer your question, but we want to invite other families who are here who have lost loved ones due to police brutality to also come forward. Mr. Floyd, can you answer that question? We may answer that question on the side for you. Okay.
Question about the case, sir.
Okay. Question about the case. And Attorney Stone, where are the other families?
Today in court, Derek Chauvin offered condolences to the families. I was wondering what you thought about that. And also Derek Chauvin's mother continued to say that her son was innocent and that people did not know her son like the family did. And I was wondering what you thought about those comments. The condolences from Derek Chauvin and the mother saying that her son was innocent and people did not know Derek Chauvin like her family did.
All right. I just thought about it as the same thing with my brother. People didn't know who my brother was. They labeled him. The trial was all about my brother. Instead, it should have been about Mr. Chauvin. So the things that she spoke about, I understand that because that's her son. Same way she spoke up for her son, I spoke up for my brother. So we all love our loved ones, but the fact that I will never see my brother again is worse because she still will have the opportunity to see her son in the cell anytime she wants to.
Let me say something about that with Philonis. When I heard his mother speak, and I respect any mother stand up for their son, but it reminded me, and I said it in the eulogy right here, that George called for his mother. And the one that seemed not to understand the bond between a mother and son, when a son would call for his mother that was no longer alive, was not the Floyd family, it was her son, Derek. Because that did not make him stop when he heard a man call for his mother. I respect his mother. He did not respect George calling for his mother.
Thank you, Rev. We want to acknowledge Bishop Harding, who was over the Salvation Army where George worked, and George did so much great. So let's acknowledge and give him a round of applause for the great work they do. Now we're going to turn it over to a lady who needs no introduction here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. She's a lawyer, she's an activist, and she's a freedom fighter. Y'all give it up for my sister, Nakima. And she's going to introduce some other families. Please, Queen.
Good afternoon. It's our honor to stand here with the family of George Floyd and the lawyers who continue to represent this family in their continued pursuit of justice. This is one step towards progress, but this is not justice, and this is not full accountability as the family has asked for. I'm Nakima Levy-Armstrong. I'm a civil rights attorney based here in Minneapolis, and I'm standing next to Tashira Garraway, who is part of Family Supporting Families Against Police Violence Jaylani Hussein from CARE Minnesota, and Michelle Gross from Communities United Against Police Brutality. And we are all here as people who stand on the front lines with the folks who are here from the Twin Cities who hold it down time and time again. We got to give it up for the activists and the organizers who face rubber bullets, tear gas, arrests, and demonization for standing up for George Floyd and all stolen lives. This incident today of Derek Chauvin being sentenced is something that we've been waiting for a long time. The sad part about his sentence is that we know that black men often receive more time for doing less than what Derek Chauvin did. There are plenty of black men and Latino men in prison for nonviolent drug offenses. But here we have a veteran officer who was literally able to lynch someone in broad daylight in the presence of children and other witnesses and essentially get a proverbial slap on the wrist. That is not acceptable. Judge Cahill should have held him accountable to the fullest extent of the law. It is not enough that he has received the most time from compared to other police officers who have killed people. This is a new day. It's not based on what they did in the past when they could lynch us and get away with it, when they could brutalize us and get away with it, when they could kill people and get away with it. Just because it's the most time does not mean that it is enough time. So we will continue to stand up and fight alongside this family and everyone else who cares about justice in demanding that the federal government now step in and hold Derek Chauvin and those other 3 police officers who were involved in killing George Floyd accountable to the fullest extent of the law. If the federal government had stepped in a long time ago, George Floyd might still be alive today. So that is the least that they can do in this situation. And I want to encourage all the activists, the organizers, the community members who are sitting at home to get off the couch and come down to the government center to stand in solidarity with Families Supporting Families and other organizing groups, as well as a 9 o'clock nighttime peaceful demonstration that's going to happen downtown. Thank you all for being here. Realize we're not sleeping in the Twin Cities, and we're going to continue to stand up and fight for justice. Thank you.
We love you, Toshiro. We love you.
My name is Tashira Garraway. I am the founder of Families Supporting Families Against Police Violence. I am also the mother of Justin Tigan's 15-year-old son, who was brutally beat to death by the St. Paul police and thrown inside of a trash dumpster August 19, 2009. I stand here in solidarity with Emmett Till's family, Travis Jordan family, Brian Quinonez family, Demetrius Hill, Jafford Smith, and so many other families, Kobe Heisler, Jacob Blake's family, so many other families that have led up to George Floyd and that have lost loved ones after George Floyd. I want the world to know that there is a group of families that are fighting together, that is standing up for justice, that is standing up in solidarity. And we ask that those voices be paid attention to. We ask that those voices that you do not hear about, those stories that have been swept under the rug, that people have not heard, we ask that you hear those voices. Because they were not successful with covering up George Floyd's murder does not mean that the rest of the murders are not just as important. The rest of the lives are just as important, and we want everyone to hear from those families. So I stand here to fight for those families. We will not back down. We will not be quiet in this time, but we are holding up the rest of the families that have taken the same loss as George Floyd family. We are very thankful for the little bit of crumbs that they did give us today with holding this officer accountable. But just like George Floyd is the face of hundreds of murders around Minnesota that have been covered up, so is Derek Chauvin the face of hundreds of killer cops that are still out here walking around in our communities on the forces, still serving. They have brutalized family members. They have brutalized the communities. And we need these officers held accountable just like they held Derek Chauvin accountable today. We need the rest of these officers held accountable as well. And we cannot be quiet about that and not hold them accountable like we held Derek Chauvin accountable. Thank you.
That's right,
We have Courtney Ross, the girlfriend of George Floyd, here today as well, standing in solidarity with the rest of our families as well.
Right on.
Thank you.
Come on, Brother Blake.
My name is Jacob Blake.
Blake.
The verdict was handed down today, and we have no choice but to accept it.
Listen.
We don't have to be happy with it, but we accept it.
Come on. Go ahead, brother.
Is it enough? No.
No. Yes, sir.
But when we accept it, we must. We must say Bismillah.
Bismillah.
Because God knows best.
That's right. My white bar.
We must not hold hatred. But we have to stay diligent out here in these streets because nobody's going to give us anything.
That's right. Listen.
And if we sit down and rest, they'll take what we have achieved.
I just want to add, I think everything has been said, but I just want to add to many of the families who did not get this justice, not even this justice. There are thousands of families since the inception of this country that have not been made whole. And today, the justice that we saw was a partial justice, not full justice. And it's the United States of America that we see, a black America and a white America. Today, many white people feel comfortable with the sentence that came down. But we know that it's not comfortable for black people, especially many who are in prison today who are going to welcome Derek Chauvin for those 22 years. The reality is, the state that killed George Floyd has yet to pass a single piece of legislation to hold police accountable. Negotiations are happening right now, and they are watering down the bills that would hold police accountable. And the government, the United States, the federal government, has yet to pass the George Floyd Policing Act.
Right.
This is America. Let's wake up. Today is a day that we will remember that we did not get full justice. But justice inside the courthouse is not enough. We need justice outside the courthouse. And we are demanding for people who last summer marched and protested and came out. If you really care about justice, it is time for you to come back outside and march and protest until we get justice. We must do that for George Floyd's family, and we must do that for all the countless families across this country. And we must do it for the children and the people who are walking among our streets today, who will be next, because we have not done anything to protect the lives of individuals like Winston Smith, who was killed here not that long ago, that the federal government has covered up, to Dante Wright, and the countless names that we know. It is time for the state of Minnesota and Minnesotans to stand up, but it's time for Americans to get uncomfortable about injustice. If you can demand a vaccine in a pandemic, we need the vaccine of justice in this country. We need the vaccine of justice in this country against the police that are killing us, against the economic justice that's happening in our neighborhoods. We demand justice, and we say every single day that we will demand justice by any means necessary. And I'd like to bring up Michelle Gross from Communities United Against Police Brutality.
All right, Michelle. Thank you. My name is Michelle Gross, MICHELLEGROSS, and I am one of the founders and currently the president of the organization Communities United Against Police Brutality. To say that we are disappointed in this sentence is an understatement. There were so many aggravating factors and virtually no mitigating factors. The judge should have sentenced Mr. Chauvin to the fullest extent of the law. He needed to send a message, and his message was lukewarm at best. as the sentence is a presumptive sentence, it even means that Derek Chauvin will only serve 2/3 of that sentence. It's simply not enough. But more than that, we have had in this state over 270 people killed at the hands of police in the state of Minnesota since the year 2000. Derek Chauvin is only one of 2 officers who was ever convicted and sentenced of anything. He's one of only 4 officers who has been prosecuted. In other words, we have a very, very, very long way to go to even pretend that we are going to give justice. We need to reopen all of the cases of wrongful deaths in this state at the hands of law enforcement. All of those cases need to be reopened, need to get a legitimate investigation, not a phony cover-up as the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and these other police agencies have often done. We need to have an independent investigation and an independent prosecution. And until we have those things, we have no justice for these stolen lives. But beyond that, we need to change the conditions that led to these deaths in the first place. We need to change those conditions. We can honestly say that in the state of Minnesota and in the city of Minneapolis, we have not had one meaningful change that has occurred since the death of George Floyd that would prevent it from happening again. That is simply unacceptable. It means that we will continue to go through this cycle and families will continue to grieve and our communities will continue to be traumatized over and over and over again because we refuse to address the underlying problem. This is unacceptable. We are not going to go along with it. We demand change and we demand it now. Thank you.
Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Say his name. Say his name. Say his name. Say his name.
Winston Smith.
Say his name. Say his name. Say his name. All right, no doubt, no doubt. We're very disappointed by the verdict today. We believe that he should have. My name is Traren Cruz. I'm lead organizer with BLM Minnesota. TRAHERNCREWS. We're very disappointed in the verdict today. We feel that we know that Derek Chauvin should have been sentenced to 30 or 40 years. We know in the state of Minnesota people have been sentenced to 30 or 40 years for nonviolent offenses like selling drugs and things like that. So if we can send people to jail for 30, 40, 50 years for selling drugs or for nonviolent offenses, then Derek Chauvin should go to jail for 30, 40, 50 years for torturing somebody for 10 minutes in front of children in Southside Minneapolis. Also, like some of the speakers said, for this to be the home of where George Floyd happened and no meaningful reform has taken place, like requiring police officers to carry personal professional liability insurance, ending qualified immunity, having a database of killer cops. These are some initiatives that could be put in place right now that could prevent another George Floyd from happening. And at the federal level, we don't have a anti-lynching bill yet. It needs to be passed. Since Emmett Till, we haven't had, the George Floyd Act hasn't been passed. The Eric Garner Act hasn't been passed. So we urge Congress and the Senate and President Biden to make some meaningful legislation around police accountability and economic justice. Thank you.
We have someone that